It's the Bolt Action 3rd Edition week here on Tabletop, and with a comment, you could win one of 3 Battle of the Bulge Starter Sets. We will pick 3 winners, one from the YouTube comments, one from the comments on tabletop.com, and one from our Cult of Games members. So you guys get an extra chance to win.
Hello everyone, today we're going to be dipping into World War II as I take a look through the new Battle of the Bulge starter set from Warlord Games for Bolt Action 3rd Edition. Okay, so the Bolt Action starter set for 3rd Edition, the Battle of the Bulge, which builds itself as hard-bitten US infantry clash with elite German paratroopers. If I flip the box over, you can see what's inside. So this puts you in the thick of the Ardennes in 1944. You get 2 opposing forces, everything you need to play, a full version of the rules in A5 softback, a quick start guide, the GIs, the Fallschirmjäger, Greyhound, the dice you require, a bit of terrain, and all of the templates as well. So a jam-packed box. So let's crack it open and see exactly what is in here. Okay, first things first. The box is actually covered with a bit of cardboard, which is both a quick reference sheet and also has 2 10-inch rulers that you can cut out, which means you also have measuring devices. And then inside we have a whole host of stuff. So we'll lay it out. Our Battle of the Bulge book. So this gives you a bit of the history of what happened during the Bulge or the Wacht am Rhein, the Watch on the Rhine. How to assemble your forces. What is on the sprues. And before you assemble what you'll need. So the only thing you don't get in this box is polystyrene cement. How to assemble the US Army. Advice on assembling them if this is your first time playing Bolt Action, or any war game for that matter. The same for the Fallschirmjäger. Your sprue breakdown. Some example forces and scenarios with a required number of men per side, and then some scenarios, so a chance encounter, hold the line, and counter attack as a sort of an escalating mini narrative to lead you through your first games all the way up to knowing what's happening. We have Peter Dennis's lovely artwork at the back, which is also the box art. And then a bit on painting your models, the paint you'll require, and what you'll find on the transfer sheet for the vehicles. And there is an assembly guide for the M8 or M20, depending on how you plan on putting it together. So, a comprehensive little beginner's guide, finishing with where you can go subsequently. And another mini version of that quick reference sheet. I love quick reference sheets. We have the Battle of the Bulge dice. So, packed by Becky. Thank you, Becky. If you've not played Bolt Action before, the game itself uses D6 for your order tests, your randomization of firing, that sort of thing. Activations are all done by drawing a order dice from a container, be it a dice bag or a cup or whatever. In this case, they've given you 5 for the Americans and 3 for the Germans. You will almost definitely need more than this if you go on and play bigger games. But to get you started with the starter set, this is adequate. Although we actually made the starter set do a lot more work, but we'll get to that later on. There is the Greyhound, the 2 building sprues. We get our Fallschirmjäger sprues. So 1, 2, 3 of those. Take a look at those in a bit more detail in a moment. The US, apart from the Greyhound, get 1, 2, 3, 4 infantry sprues. 2 sprues of bases. Standard Warlord round-lipped. Template sprue that also includes markers, which are done in these little dog tags. Get a sprue of pin markers. Our transfer sheets. And finally, in its own little bag, we get the bolt action rulebook, which is 300-ish pages, 320 pages. So it's not a quick start, it's not a cut down version, it is the full rulebook. So let's tidy up a little and we'll start looking at this in more detail. Starting off with the terrain then, we have 2 sprues. Interestingly enough, these don't seem to have assembly instructions that I can see in the little book. There are plenty of examples of these built on the internet though, and they are somewhat modular in that there are pieces like these recessed corner parts that will only fit on a long section or on a short wall section, and they're just to reinforce the joins when you glue 2 wall sections together. So as you can see, there are plenty of options of where to put your walls. You have the back of the chimney breast here. Again, it will only fit in one way. So nice level of detail for some very simple ruined buildings. The second building sprue has got some more pieces of rubble that you can use to reinforce corner sections, and then a ruined floor and also some beams for your roof as well. Nice kits, they've been around for a while. They do a very serviceable job for World War II throughout Europe and also other periods as well. So shouldn't be difficult to put those together. Moving on then to some of the game appropriate pieces. We have here our templates and tokens. So on the reverse, you can see they all have the bolt action logo. The template itself is actually 4 templates in one. So the internal section is a 1-inch blast, 2-inch blast, and then I think this is a 3-inch and 4-inch for the larger outside. It will tell you on the arrows which is which. And they're also divided up here if you need to randomize a specific direction, although there is an easier way of doing that, which I'll show you in a second. On the reverse here, you can see we have a host of things. So for marking damage on vehicles, track off, turret jam, ranged in if you're using artillery or mortars, and then these for hidden. So units that haven't activated yet might be patrolling somewhere else. Even a little token here to let you know if NCO's been killed in a unit, which will affect them gameplay wise. So you can use these in a myriad of ways. If you do need to pick a random direction, an easier way than using this is just to take one of your order die, roll it, and all of them have got a upper directional arrow to show you where your randomized direction is going to. And then it's just a case of adding in a D6 or 2D6, whatever the rule in question tells you to. Maybe it's moving an artillery piece. So that's the templates. The pin markers, a little bit different. So our top explosion sits into the the dial here, and there are a set of numbers around the dial. Just thought I'd very quickly show you the pin markers assembled. So as they are, they're translucent red explosions, and you can see there the triangular pointer, and it's currently pointing to 7, which isn't the easiest to spot. They work just like a dial, so they are notched. Every time you turn it, it clicks. There's like a ratchet type notch inside it, so it won't easily spin around in there. But if you take this one, where I have gone around it with a silver Sharpie, it makes spotting the number that you're pointing at much easier. So if I want to go to 4 pins, I can very quickly do that. And if you want to, you can color that pointer in as well before you insert it, because it's simply a push fit into the base. But it's just a handy little thing if you're going to be playing with these, and especially if your eyesight's not the greatest. It's a easy fix to just make sure that you can actually spot the numbers on the pins. Or if you're particularly lazy like me, just count each individual marker as a single pin, and then you don't have to worry about the numbers unless you start to run out. Okay, so let's take a look at the fun stuff in the box then. Starting off with the Americans, the Greyhound / Armoured Car, because you can build multiple variants. 2 sprues. All of the sprues are numbered, or all the components on the sprues are numbered rather. So whether it's the jerry cans or the spare wheels or whatever it happens to be, in this case multiple cupolas depending on your setup, they are all listed. You even have your suspension and drivetrains, and some of our weaponry here as well. They are nicely cast. I believe these are from artillery. The second sprue has the main body components, so your upper and lower hull, your sides and armour, including the gun mantlets, and then a driver. So depending on how you build these, like I say, there are options in here that you will not need, but overall it's a nice bit of kit for the US. It also comes with the little transfer sheet with their numbers, D-Day markings as well, so nobody drops a bomb on them, and also some reference numbers or individual unit names that they've given them. So Billy Boy's the bomb. I'll just leave that at that. You also get a card with both the M20 Scout Car stats and the M8 Greyhound stats, depending which one you build, giving you the damage required to deal it, transport capacity, and the type of vehicle it is, along with the weapons and any special rules associated. So it's a handy reference when playing. Okay, so I've built the M20 Scout Car. This is a armoured open-top recce that can also be used as a command vehicle. Well, it's relatively easy to put together following the instructions. A couple of issues I ran into. Some of the sprue gates were in slightly inconvenient places. So, for example, between these 2 hinges, there's a sprue gate tight into it, so you have to clip it off and then go in with a knife to level it off. And then the sprue numbers mean you can't actually get in to clip these off easily, which means you end up possibly taking a chunk out of those. There you can see the full suspension and transmission, which was the word I was looking for earlier. So overall, a nice little piece of kit. The sprue is showing its age in places. There's a bit of cleanup to do on some of the sprue gates, especially with things like these front lights. One of them was completely missing the peg for the hole, or rather, it was so thick on the sprue, you would have to carve it down yourself. Did run into a couple of issues with the build guide you should be aware of if it's the first time you are building something like this. So first up is this front hatch assembly. It does not require all of these pieces. You either use 28 and 29, which are closed, or 27 and 9 and 26 and 10 make these hatches opened. So as you can see, I've just gone with the closed version. But if you want them open, then use the two other pieces. And another part is with the M20 build. This part here, 39, that looks like it slots in here. It actually is a beveled edge. So there's an angle here with a, I'm going to say like a 50-degree bevel that fits the front of this large cupola. So it's not sitting straight down in there. In fact, you are better gluing it to this large piece before you attach it onto the Greyhound itself. But other than that, it went together with, fairly easily, just following the instructions, and gives you a nice reconnaissance command vehicle for your Americans so they can see what is out and about. Moving on to the infantry for the Americans. There are, as I said, 4 of these sprues, 6 bodies per sprue, 5 standing, 1 kneeling. Weaponry. If I pivot this around, we have a few loose, so loose submachine gun, loose rifle, and then a variety of paired arms. So rifle, SMG, another rifle. We have a bazooka with ammo, another rifle here, and then some additional arms with other pieces attached. So field telephone, slung SMG. We have binoculars, cigarette, map, rifle grenade. So somebody's doing a bit of work. Some magazines, and then other pieces. I flip these around. We have pouches, water canteens, more ammo pouches to go around the waistband of your Great Coat troopers. A nice amount of heads on the sprue as well. So 16 heads for 6 bodies. Some are plain, some have got covers on them, and then there's even soft covers as well. So plenty of variety with the faces and covers on the men before you have to start replicating people. Okay, so I've built 1 sprue of the Americans. As you can see, a variety of weapons here. So we have a Thompson submachine gun. We have a couple of rifles. So at the ready. We have a sniper adjusting the sight on his scope, or adjusting the range on it. There's a nice little set of hands. Don't have to use that hand, it's optional. We have another rifleman here firing down the barrel of his gun. And then we have an officer on the field telephone shooting with his pistol, and a bar. So the Browning automatic rifle squad support weapon. You can have 2 of these in a US squad or US section. So overall, nice builds. Couple of things. There are additional pouches and also sort of bread bags. The bread bags typically go on one of 2 sides. You can see there's a strap coming across, and they match up quite neatly with those. Obviously, you can still put on canteens, grenades, other pieces like that. The other is the bandolier. So there's a few of these bandoliers. They all need to be put on before you put the arms on. Now, the arms will go around them, but getting them into situ after you've built them is problematic at best, I would say. So any of the additional pouches you want to put on, definitely think about doing that before you decide on the arms that are going to go on to the individual troopers. And you should be quite all right with the build on them. Otherwise, they're very quick to put together. Okay, so the Fallschirmjäger then, the Americans' opponents in the Bulge box set. As you can see, 6 models per sprue again, 5 in a variety of upright poses, 1 kneeling, all wearing heavy winter gear, so thermal, quilted, whatever you want to call it. Reversible parkers at the ready. Again, a lot of options on this sprue. In the case of the Fallschirmjäger, mostly weaponry. So starting at the top, we have some head options, 6 here and 7 helmeted versions on the bottom of the sprue here. So not as many head options, but what they lack in diversity of heads, they more than make up for in weapon options. So they come with a variety of weaponry, FG-42 assault weapons and STGs, Sturmgewehr 42s as well. They also have some MG-42 infantry machine guns, bipoded machine guns, a whole host of SMGs, the likes of the MP40, a Sten, I think there's even a PPSH somewhere lurking on this sprue, alongside Car 98 rifles, some ammo, and a little case, which I think should be for some form of grenades. However, you could use that for other things, potentially a medic. There are a host of bits, so belts for your ammunition to make your loader, along with the ammo case itself for the MG42. A ton of pouches and additional magazine equipment, and then also Panzerfausts, so you can have a couple of anti-tank options, which is very handy when your opponent is rocking a Greyhound or some form of armoured car. It'll be very necessary. So there we have the sprue for the Fallschirmjäger, and let's see what they look like built up. All right, so my Fallschirmjäger, I built 6 of these, so a sprue's worth, and you can see some of them here. So variety of weaponry. I have the Sturmgewehr with a Panzerfaust, with packs and entrenching tools on the back. Another Sturmgewehr, so STG-44. The squad support LMG. And an NCO carrying a submachine gun, in this case the Soviet PPSH. Doesn't matter which submachine gun or rifle or assault rifle they're carrying, they count as a specific type, so it's either an SMG, an assault rifle, or a basic rifle. This one's got a potato masher to throw. And then we also have a standard rifleman with the Car 98. And an NCO carrying MP40 from the looks of things, and the most important weapon of the war, the entrenching shovel. So, easy builds. Most arms are either individual, so you can go wherever you want, or pre-paired on the sprue. A couple of them for firing poses, for example, you may find that some of them are a pair that isn't joined on the sprue already, but very easy to build. There are an excessive amount of pouches, packs, and other pieces. So you can see here this set of ammo pouches with the stick grenade pushed into his belt. These are optional extras. You'll need to put those on before you build the model completely, before you put the arms on, just to allow you to get round or get underneath where the arm is going to sit. Likewise, these vertical ammo pouches that are going down, that are sort of sculpted to sit under the collar and then flare out over the bottom of the tunic. You can just see the angle there. Again, they need to go on before you put these arms on, just so you're not having to try and fiddle around to get them behind there, or worse still, find that the position of the hand is such that you can't actually get the packs on where you want them. So there's a lot of optional pouches, packs, and ammo for these models, as befits sort of late war Germans, where they had a ton of additional equipment, especially for the veteran units. So it's a nice way of showing the veterancy of the force that you're using by having all that extra equipment, extra ammo pouches, extra ammo belts. They can all be strewn around. Just put those onto the torso before you add on the arms, and then the heads can go on at the very end once you know the posing of the actual miniature itself. But there we have it, the Fallschirmjäger. Nice set of models to build. Okay, looking at the rulebook itself then, the most important part of a box. So like I say, 320 pages, softback, A5. There's a lot has gone into this. So if we start with the contents itself, we have the first 50 odd pages are history. So from 1939 and Case White, which is the invasion of Poland, all the way through to the victory in the West, which is crossing the Rhine and the invasion into Germany, and then the Battle of the Bulge, Wacht am Rhein, which is the starter set. The history behind it is in here. So if you're new to World War II wargaming, you get a good solid primer on the various theatres in and around Western Europe, and some North Africa and some in the Pacific as well, the main thrusts of them. So it's a good potted history. After that, you get into the actual rules itself. So the rules run from page 52 through to 151. So 100 pages of rules before you get into some of the more esoteric things like the terrain types, like buildings and bunkers. And then after that, you have your army lists and scenarios, so playing the actual game itself. So if we flip past the history, like I say, it's all really neatly defined, and throughout you get nice pictures, either of games in progress or from Osprey, and things like A Jewel in the Sun, so the North African and Italy campaigns. So it gives you a really good idea of what was happening, where it was happening, and when. After the history, you get into the conventions of war. So playing your games, how to play bolt action, measuring distances, turning circles, things like that. Everything has been well laid out with a lot of supplemental images, whether it's step-by-step guides for measuring distances, movement, splitting, line of sight, whatever it happens to be. All of the diagrams are in there and right beside where they need to be, going through the game itself. And the meat and potatoes of playing a war game. If I skip past all of that, and we'll get to the army lists, which is probably the biggest expansion over previous editions. There's our scenarios. Here we go. So this is the new way of playing Bolt Action 3rd edition, and it really comes down to the platoon selectors. So the reinforced platoon, which was very abstracted, is gone, and instead you now have platoon selectors that are more themed. So if you want to bring a support platoon with either armor or some form of light artillery or mortars, whatever it happens to be, then you're picking from a heavy weapons platoon rather than always going back to a rifle platoon with additional heavy weapons and having lots of small units of rifles running around for no reason, instead of having the actual support weapons. So it gives you a very different way of selecting your forces. Still familiar to anybody who's played Bolt Action in the past, but should make fielding historically accurate orders of battle slightly easier, without having to spam small units just to get them on the field, including things like your armored platoons as well. And then after that, it goes into nations. So each nation starts with its national special rules. So Blitzkrieg, Initiative Training, and Hitler's Buzzsaw for the Germans, giving them additional die for machine guns, or allowing squad members to step up if a NCO or officer is removed from a section. And then you get the actual list options in here, where you're just picking out whatever you need to pick out, whether it's bringing a broom bar or a martyr, or taking some half tracks for your infantry. So there are 5 sets of lists for the main Axis and Allied nations. So Great Britain, Germany, America, the Soviet Union, and Japan. And there will be supplemental lists coming out before the armies books are released in PDF form that will cover the minor nations as well. So people will be able to play with whatever they have if they're already playing in here. The last thing they have at the end are some additional rules. So if you're playing more specific games, like you want to do Pegasus Bridge, there are rules for glider landings, or you want to do D-Day, you've got your amphibious attacks, rules for fighting city fights, so Stalingrad or Berlin itself, and including things like weather effects, terrain effects. If people get stuck in the mud in Kursk, how will that affect the game? So these are supplemental rules that you can use that are additional to the core rules. So they're optional if you're playing a more campaign-based or narrative game, including massive games as well. So when you want to get all of your toys on the table, how do you do it? And the book itself then finishes with your rule summary and a index section. And these should, like quick reference, be legally required in all rule book. So if you need to find something, you can very quickly check the index and then work out where you need to go to, whether it happens to be clearing minefields or climate conditions, or whether you're looking for specific rules on assaulting out of a transport or ranging in with artillery, whatever it happens to be. the index does a solid job of pointing you in the right direction. That's our rules. So there we have it, folks. The Battle of the Bulge starter set is really a fantastic two-player starter for anyone. If this is your first glimpse into the world of bolt action, there's enough in there not just to get you started with all your tokens and dice, the bit of terrain from the ruined farmhouse, but those sprues for the Fallschirmjäger and your US troopers. It's more than just a taster. We were able to put together two very solid 600-point lists for the introductory game that I played with Kieran, so you can keep your eye out for that later on in the week. And it shows you the diversity that's on those sprues. You can make your small arm teams like snipers and bazookas. You can make medics, forward observers for artillery or air, which really gives you an idea of how bolt action as a whole plays. And a standard game is 1,000 points, so being able to get 600 points out of an introductory starter box for both factions is really, really good. It means you can just go in there and start adding maybe some mortars or machine gun teams, maybe some armor on the German side as well, to build that sort of Ardennes Kampfgruppe. It's up to you how you decide to take it, but it's definitely one to look at if you're just getting into bolt action. And if you're already a bolt action veteran, then it's just a fantastic way to pick up the new plastics. We're going to move on, and there's plenty more coming throughout this week. Bye-bye.
It's the Bolt Action 3rd Edition week here on Tabletop, and with a comment, you could win one of 3 Battle of the Bulge starter sets. We will pick 3 winners, one from the YouTube comments, one from the comments on tabletop.com, and one from our Cult of Games members. So you guys get an extra chance to win.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.